Hello, welcome to my audio breakdown of Embers and Debris off of my album, This Is Not For You. This song is the longest song on the album and I think has a couple of interesting things going on in it. For starters, it contains pieces of every other song on the album inside of it. More on that later. Its chord progression, which you're hearing right now, is based on the bridge section from the song Falling for a Girl.
Maybe I'm just taken by the novel phase, the first impressions of a deeper maze, the affectations of the wooing ways.
And Embers and Debris also contains a reprisal of that bridge, which works very easily because it's the same chords. The song Missing Frames is written in the same key also. Here's a quick listen to Missing Frames. So Falling for a Girl, Missing Frames, and Embers and Debris are evenly spaced out in the middle of the album with 2 songs between and after each one. But if you were to listen to just those 3 songs in a row, because they all share the same chord sequence or variations of those chords, they sound like 3 parts of a greater whole. Embers and Debris is very polyphonic. In most sections, there are multiple tunes playing at the same time, whether it's a lead guitar tune competing with a vocal tune, or several instruments simultaneously playing different tunes. The song is divided into 5 sections. As I worked on it, it started to feel like I was telling the 5 stages of grief, so I leaned into that. The first section, the I don't know why I can't let it die section, is denial in the face of a dead relationship, but unable to deal with the loss of the struggle to keep the fire burning, I'm stoking the remaining embers, trying to get them going again.
It's old debris, roof to ground now, embers around me. If I can't fix this, I don't know what I'm gonna be. It's all I knew. Hopeful panic, killing fires as they grew. Without that fire, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I was excited to have a song where I could let the instruments do more of the talking than I normally do. I'm not usually confident enough to throw solos into my songs, but in this one I got pretty self-indulgent. The second section is the Falling for a Girl bridge reprisal, which was, in Falling for a Girl, like a warning to myself about my tendencies for what sorts of relationships I tended to fall into. And in this song, about the end of one of those relationships, it's an angry lament that what I'd been afraid would happen did. It starts with what I thought sounded like an angry swarm of bees. It's 7 guitars all playing sloppy 8th notes from the E minor chord, underscored by a synth bass line, this sort of fuzzy, angry-sounding noise. I'll bring all the parts in one at a time so you can hear all the components. It sounds pretty cool. From here, the song falls apart into little pieces. The much softer version of how the bridge reprise began. But instead of killer bees, it felt now to me like little sparks from a larger fire being carried away by an updraft, slowly fading away. This leads to the third section, which is my first and admittedly simple version of a fugue, with 4 instruments each playing their own little parts. I don't know what this section represents other than collapse after an exhaustive fight for something that's already over. The fourth section is the Better Than Goodbye section, which feels like a unification of ideas and instruments. Whereas before the vocals and instruments were all doing different things, now everyone's on the same page, working together to say the same thing. There's an understanding that the fight to keep the fire burning was easier in a way than saying goodbye. Again, I'll bring the pieces in individually.
Expand and cold decline. Blue skies that shimmer and shine.
And the fifth section is the acceptance, in reference to an earlier lyric in the first section. The only remains of the relationship now are like radio wave distress calls, flying off into space, growing fainter and fainter. Those radio waves are, in this case, represented by all the other songs on the album, and snippets of them can be heard between radio static and a final exhalation of relief.
More than you know, or you still till you
I find it kind of funny that the beginning of Embers and Debris is also shoved in there. When I started out making this song, it was all about taking that chord progression from Falling for a Girl and seeing how many different types of sounds I could put on top of it so that a listener wouldn't realize that they were just hearing the same looping chords again and again, considering that I forgot that that's what it was until I started making this video. I guess it worked pretty well. Thanks for listening. This is too long of a recording for me to include the whole song like I wanted to, but you can check it out on any streaming service where you get your music. I will also include a link to a recording of it that's on a separate video on YouTube.